Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mayor Figueredo,
Abstain?
Committeeman Bowser,
Yes.
Mr. Crane,
Yes.
Ms. Khan,
Yes.
Chairman Johnson.
Yes. All right, before we call up, Ms. Russell, I see that you're here today. We look forward to your presentation. We have a very aggressive agenda tonight, and if, I've asked, anyone here representing Princeton Road? Nobody here representing Princeton Road? Okay. All right. Never mind. All right, Ms. Russell, I understand you have a presentation for us today?
I do. I believe that there are two items of mine on the agenda, and I don't have the benefit of having a hard copy. So can you tell me which one you're expecting to hear first?
Liberty Avenue, B3701.
Very good. For the benefit of the new members, I'm going to, in the course of my presentation, I'm going to give a little bit more information about how this process works so that everybody who may not be familiar with what we're going through can kind of establish a framework and an understanding of how this process works in terms of redevelopment. For those of you who are new, my name is Kristen Russell. I'm a planner with Colliers Engineering and Design, and from time to time you'll see me here in Union. So what we have before us tonight is the Liberty Avenue 2 Area in Need of Redevelopment Study. Redevelopment is a process that is established by the state to, as the name implies, to redevelop properties that may have some qualifying problem that makes their development under unassisted conditions a challenge. So the property that we're looking at today is a 2-acre parcel. It's a vacant parking lot along Liberty Avenue between Ridge Drive and Springfield Road. Last year, we looked at a property across the street that was the Bed Bath & Beyond headquarters, and this board went through the same process and determined that those properties qualified as areas in need of redevelopment. Subsequently, it was requested that we add this additional parcel. And I shouldn't say add because it is a separate study, but it obviously geographically is related to these other parcels. And in fact, if this board were to determine that this additional parcel also qualifies, it is likely that the entire 5-parcel cluster would be brought together into a single redevelopment plan. That is not necessary, but I expect that that is likely. Again, that is pending the recommendation of this board and the vote of the Township Committee. So here on this map, you can see the relationship of the parcel that we're talking about this evening, it's in blue, to the ones that were previously determined to be in need of redevelopment. The parcel is currently zoned CI for commercial industrial that allows uses such as manufacturing, research labs, data centers, and so forth, with a minimum lot area of 80,000 square feet. That's approximately the same as the 2-acre parcel that we have now. And the maximum building height in the CI zone is 45 feet. So the local redevelopment and housing law sets forth a series of criteria that a parcel needs to qualify with in order to be determined to be in need of redevelopment. It does not need to qualify under all of them. It only needs to qualify under one. And in fact, if we're talking about a larger area than just one lot, not all parcels actually need to qualify. That's not relevant this evening because we are talking about only one parcel. And I will be speaking to criterion D this evening, which is areas with buildings or improvements which by reason of dilapidation, obsolescence, overcrowding, faulty arrangement or design, lack of ventilation, light and sanitary facilities, excessive land coverage, deleterious land use or obsolete layout, or any combination of these or other factors are detrimental to the safety, health, morals, or welfare of the community. At the end, I'll also touch on criterion H, which is the designation of the delineated area is consistent with smart growth planning principles adopted pursuant to law or regulation. So just as a little bit of quick background, we did look into the history of the site. Going back to 1954, you can see that it's mostly undeveloped. It looks like there may be a parking lot in that top left-hand corner. It's kind of hard to tell exactly. 1966, a few years later, there's definitely a parking lot there. And in fact, it's interesting that you can see there's no tree cover there, so you can see the creek running through the site. In 1979, the parking lot has expanded a bit. And so I have made some observations about the site. I went out there, did a site visit. As I mentioned previously, it's a 2-acre site. It's a parking lot that stands vacant, and there's really no use for it now that the Bed Bath & Beyond headquarters have gone out of business. There's nobody to park in that site. And in fact, if something were to be built on that site, they would have to provide their own parking anyway. The site was previously determined as having historic fill and groundwater contamination. A remedial action report is due in 2027. So that means that there are environmental conditions that are being addressed, but that is always somewhat of a burden on a property. A portion of the property is also traversed by a floodway. When you have water issues, that's also a burden on a property. It may increase construction costs. It may limit where on a site construction can happen at all. And here this map shows that floodway, and the kind of orangish color abutting the site is also a flood hazard area. A 2.2% annual chance flood zone, which means a 500-year storm. So as I mentioned a few slides ago, I'm looking at criterion D for this site. That's the obsolete layout and design criterion. Most obviously, the parking lot is obsolete because its users have gone away. The Bed Bath & Beyond site is no longer in use. Nobody needs to use it to park. Also, vacant sites are generally detrimental to the community, demoralizing. It could be a place where we see trash being discarded, or it's just unsightly. Then I'm also referring to criterion H. This is the criterion that speaks to smart growth. Smart growth is a state principle that basically encourages growth in ways that does not sprawl, that takes advantage of existing infrastructure, existing centers, and Union Township is designated within the state plan as a center, and where infill development and that sort of thing should be targeted. So if this site were to be redeveloped, that aligns with the state's planning priorities to locate much of the state's future redevelopment in metropolitan planning areas. It will contribute to the revitalization of cities and towns, promoting compact growth, stabilizing an older suburb, and any future redevelopment plan would be written to protect the character of the community. For clarification, this area in need of redevelopment study precedes any future redevelopment plan. So at this point in the process, we're not looking at what would go there, what the zoning would be, and that sort of thing. This stage of the process is just to look at that parcel and determine if it qualifies as an area in need of redevelopment. So based on these two criterion that I've gone through, it is my professional opinion that the site does qualify in need of redevelopment. This board will next discuss, if you agree with that, if you have any questions, and then you would make a referral to the township committee. So that's how this process works. And I'd be happy to take questions about the process or about the site more specifically.
Questions from the board? Questions from the public?
I do have a question. You did mention on the lot that there was a creek through it. My question with regards to the creek, does that creek connect to any other rivers or other bodies of water that traverse through the township?
Oh gosh, I don't have a wider view photo here, I don't think. But just to the west, oh gosh, is that the Passaic River? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna stumble over my rivers.
I'm stumbling through mine. I think it might be the Rahway.
Is the Rahway?
Yeah.
Just behind these Bed Bath & Beyond sites, I believe is where the river ultimately it connects.
Okay.
I think ultimately that stream finds its way over to the Rahway River.
So it does. Okay. The reference to pooling water, can you elaborate more in terms of, is it pooling water within the parking lot, basically where there is impervious coverage, or is there other areas in the lot itself that you see pooling water as well?
I only saw pooling water on the parking lot where there's impervious coverage. And the main thing that tells me is that if this parking lot were being used, it would be maintained and this sort of thing would be resolved.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily an issue of, it's not necessarily even a water issue on the parking lot. It's just demonstrative that the lot is not being used or being taken care of.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Kristen, if you could explain to the board that here we are looking at two criteria that are satisfied, when in fact only one is required
Yes.
to deem an area in need of redevelopment.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's correct. You only need one. Now, when more than one applies, it certainly benefits the board or the approving body or anybody doing this analysis to point out all of the ones that apply. Should any such designation ever be challenged, you certainly want to have all evidence in the record, and say that on a different site it was somebody challenged a designation, but we had used 3 criterion. Well, they would have to prove all 3 as being unreasonable, and hopefully at least one of them sticks. I mean, I would never recommend using the criterion if I didn't wholeheartedly believe that it was applicable, but we want to use as many as we can, and in this, but you only need one. Yeah.
Any other questions from the board?
I have a question. The map of the area,
Yeah.
all the areas are surrounded in red, all the other districts say. Have they already been deemed redevelopment?
Yes, I'm trying to find that map for you.
This one?
This one?
Yeah.
Yes, the 4 parcels that are outlined in red were part of the Liberty Avenue area in need of redevelopment. That was designated, did I write down the date? It was designated on June 27th, 2023. Those were a bit different. Well, 3 of the 4 were a bit different because they actually have unutilized buildings on them. The 4th of that is also a parking lot. So some similarities there.
Thank you.
Questions from the planning board? Questions from the public? All right, Ms. Russell, would you like us to move on this separately to protect the record?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to ask for a motion that area in need Liberty Avenue B3701 L201 be approved and referred to the Township Committee.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call.
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Figueredo?
Yes.
Committeeman Bowser?
Yes.
Mr. Frame?
Yes.
Ms. Khan?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Yes. All right, Ms. Russell, you start on the Burnett Avenue project?
Yes. So it's perhaps fortuitous that we have these two applications back to back tonight, because the stage after the redevelopment designation is the crafting of a redevelopment plan. And that's what we have before us tonight, the Burnett Avenue redevelopment plan. So last year at some point, this same area went through the process that we just spoke about for the prior application. It was determined to be an area in need of redevelopment. This is a site on Burnett Avenue that is currently a almost exclusively vacated mobile home park. It's 1.964 acres. The vacancy rate is really, I don't remember, I don't know what the number is today, but it's been above 80 or 90% for a long time. And the remaining residents are being moved out. On May 23rd, 2023, pursuant to this board's recommendation, the Township Committee adopted the resolution declaring this area as in need of redevelopment. I want to give a disclaimer that the photo in this picture is a concept. It is not a promise. When we prepare a redevelopment plan, that is, to put it simply, like writing zoning code specifically for the area. If adopted, the applicant will then proceed with a site plan application as any normal application would for review before this board. And at that time, what they present to you is, their official request for site plan. It is very likely that anything that they show you would be similar, if not identical, to this concept, but I just don't want there to be any confusion if this is adopted and then a few months from now you see something that isn't quite the same. That can happen. So, as I said, we established redevelopment standards which are similar to zoning code. First thing being to identify permitted uses, and what we've identified in this plan is to allow townhome dwellings and multifamily housing. So it would be an entirely residential site. Here's just some typical bulk standards that I'll go through with you. The minimum lot area, basically they can't subdivide that lot, it is what it is. We've set a maximum density of 18 units per acre, which would allow 36 units on that site. There would be a minimum setback from Burnett of 20 feet and 15 feet from all of the other property lines. A maximum height of 3 stories plus the attic and 43 feet. Maximum building coverage of 25%, maximum impervious coverage of 65%, and there will be affordable housing on this site. This site is included in the township's housing element fair share plan, which, as the name suggests, sets forth a vision and some identifies sites that will be required to provide affordable housing. So 20% of the for sale units on the site must be affordable, or 15% of the rental units, depending on how the developer were to sell their units or market their units. That's how that number would be determined. And a minimum parking of 2.25 spaces per unit. We also have some design requirements. I've referred back to the signage and lighting requirements that are in your zoning code already, so those requirements will be across the board. What's existing in town now is what will be required here. We've established front and side facades be of a higher quality material, masonry, wood, fiber cement, so stucco and vinyl would need to be pushed to the back where they're not so visible. Townhome rows shall have vertical demarcations at intervals of no more than every 25 feet. So that keeps us with a traditional townhome look of 25-foot wide units, so it doesn't look like one long row of homes. You can one long row of just a big building. It looks more like homes, like that are typical. Roofs shall be pitched. Sound attenuation materials must be used on the 3rd and 4th floor where we're near the highway, because this does back up onto the highway. Lawns must be landscaped. There needs to be a landscaped buffer. Refuse storage must be within buildings, so there's not going to be dumpsters or trash sitting out. Before I address this slide, I would like to also let the members of the board who may not be aware understand that when this plan when any redevelopment plan is adopted, the township also has more discretion in understanding how the site is developed and controlling that. So the developer of any such site would be designated. The town essentially can approve a developer and say, okay, you've proven your merit, or you have the financial viability to do this, or the track record. So the town will look at developers, a developer or multiple developers, depending on the case, and select them, approve them. It's called designating them, and they can attach additional requirements to the obligation of the developer. And when I spoke a few minutes ago about affordable housing, the nuances of that will be further addressed in that the redeveloper's agreement that the designated developer signs off on. So things like that will be addressed in fine-tuned detail with the developer once designated. So even if things like that might not be in this plan word for word will be addressed. Another requirement of redevelopment plans is that they be consistent with your master plan. The master plan is sort of a roadmap that the township is to use going forward to guide its decisions. And we want to remain true to that so that we understand that what this redevelopment plan is recommending aligns with the larger vision of the community. So in 2021, you adopted your comprehensive master plan, and I pulled 2 goals from there that are applicable to what this redevelopment plan does. The first being to maintain the character of existing residential neighborhoods while providing opportunities for housing types that meet the interests and needs of all ages and abilities. That includes recognizing the viability and need for alternatives to detached single-family homes, 2-family dwellings, and other housing configurations in existing neighborhoods, and as part of redevelopment should be continued where this will not undermine other objectives, and to require infill development in existing residential neighborhoods to be compatible with the neighborhood and conform to the setbacks of existing buildings on the block. And the second goal being to establish realistic market-driven and financially feasible redevelopment plans that attract new development and encourage redevelopment or rehabilitation of existing properties where possible, and to encourage the improvement of properties in disrepair. This site backs up to another residential community, so we're making sure that the two do not conflict with each other. They're compatible, and that the character of this development would not be obtrusive to the existing residences that it adjoins. So the next step in this process also is that this board would vote to recommend this to the township committee if that's your leaning, and then ultimately they would, if they agree with you, adopt it, and then this would be the new zoning on that site, overriding, superseding the existing zoning on the site, and then a developer would move forward with the designation process that I described, and then come back to this board again for site plan approval in the way that, this board traditionally does review site plans.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. Is there anything else you'd like to?
No.
All right, questions from the board?
How much space would be dedicated to recreation on that housing?
There's no dedicated recreation, outdoor recreation space on the site. There is private outdoor space. Each of the townhomes has a patio. And I know that the concept that the developer is working on does have an indoor community space, which I'm not sure that if that would be something that you would qualify as recreational, but it would kind of just be a space that, if they're having a family gathering and they don't want it in their house, or a kid's birthday party, that could happen there. Now, that's part of their concept. That's not written in here as a requirement at the moment.
Any other questions from the board? Questions from the public? Okay, I'd like to have someone please move Burnett Avenue redevelopment plan B5711L1 be approved and referred to the Township Committee.
So moved.
Second? Second. Roll call.
Mr. Eads?
Yes.
Mr. Eads?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mayor Figueredo?
Yes.
Committeeman Bowser?
Yes.
Mr. Frame?
Yes.
Ms. Khan?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Russell.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Next. And next on the agenda will be the BAPU appropriation. Hello again, sir.
Chairman, how are you?
Good, yourself?
Very well.
Good.
You want yours in first, since you're...
Can you please identify yourself for the record, please?
That works. Mr. Chairman, Planning Board members, good evening. My name is Michael Koski of the law firm of Greenbaum, Rowe, Smith & Davis, and I'm here this evening on behalf of BAPU Corporation, the applicant and owner of the property located at 2735 Route 22 West in the township. Would just like to take a minute to congratulate those new members of the board. It can be a difficult job sometimes, but it's certainly appreciated, I'm sure, by the community, and obviously very important. The applicant's here this evening to continue the hearing on the application that originally commenced during the Planning Board's meeting of November 20th, 2023. Now, by way of background, the subject property has been designated by the township as an area in need of redevelopment under the local redevelopment and housing law. So this evening, you're getting an entire course on the redevelopment law based upon the past two presentations that you just heard. This specific property is subject to the Clinton Manor redevelopment plan, and pursuant to that plan, the applicant is seeking a minor subdivision approval to create two fully conforming lots and preliminary and final major site plan approval with deviations to construct a 235-room hotel and a cannabis cultivation and manufacturing facility with a parking garage. In addition, the applicant is looking for approval to use the banquet hall as a temporary facility as the parking garage is being constructed. The term of the temporary facility will be limited to 12 months in accordance with the redevelopment agreement to be entered into with the township. Now, at the November 20th meeting, the applicant presented testimony of his civil engineer, traffic engineer, professional planner, a representative of the applicant, and two individuals who specialize in the operation and management of cannabis facilities. Since the original hearing, the applicant has made some changes to the plans in an effort to address some of the concerns that were raised by some board members. Some specific modifications I can point out to you is there is a reduction in the overall intensity of two of the deviations that are being sought. In addition, the ingress and egress has been modified with the goal of making it easier to enter and exit the property since some of the concerns were raised at the last meeting. Tonight, we intend on presenting additional testimony from the civil engineer, traffic engineer, a representative of the applicant, and the project architect. Preliminarily, I would just want to address the new board members, just to confirm that if they were not at the prior meeting, that they did in fact review or listen to the hearing and will be certifying to that just for purposes of the record.
Mr. East, did you review the last meeting?
I did.
Okay. Yourself?
I did.
Joe?
I did.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And what I would hope you do, they're new.
Yeah.
There's a lot
Yep.
going on here. So if you could just like be very methodical.
Yes,
Because
yes.
I don't, the first time I was at a planning board meeting, it was like reading hieroglyphics.
Yes, yes,
So-
and we plan on doing that. It's just, for the purpose of the record, just to make sure that is clear.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there aren't any preliminary questions, we're ready to present our first witness.
Let's rock.
I would ask Michael Nana from Stonefield Engineers to please come up.
Oh, and just say, Mr. Kowski, we have till 10.
Okay.
I know we have an aggressive schedule.
Yeah.
But we have till about 10. I want to take a break, if we take around the 9 o'clock mark, so just so you can plan your presentation. And I'm sorry, your name again, sir?
Michael Nona, N-O-N-A.
Mr.
You can raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Mr. Nona, you testified at the prior board hearing, correct?
Correct.
For purpose of the new members, could you please give your background and position?
Yes. Good evening. My name is Michael Nona, spelled N-O-N-A. I'm a project engineer with Stonefield Engineering and Design, located at 92 Park Avenue in Rutherford, New Jersey. I hold a Bachelor's of Science degree in Civil Engineering from Wayne State University. I've been a professional in the engineering world for about 6 years. I hold a professional engineering license in the state of New Jersey. My license is current and in good standing.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that you be qualified as an expert witness in the field of engineering.
So ordered.
Mr. Nona, did you prepare the revised site plans dated January 15th, 2024?
I did.
Could you describe the proposed site plans that you prepared, and in addition, touch upon the revisions that were made from the prior plan?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. There you go. If I may, I'd like to start with the existing conditions quickly, and then I'll move on to the proposed site and the changes. Mr. Kosky kind of mentioned quite a few items that I'm about to hit on, but I'll be brief. The existing site has 4 existing buildings on it. There are 2 hotel buildings, a banquet hall, as well as a small 1-story residential building, all of which are now vacant or not in use. The site is bounded to the south by New Jersey State Highway Route 22. It is bounded to the west by commercial parcels which hold car dealerships. On the east. And on the west and the north, it is bounded by county parklands, and the Rahway River runs through that parkland. The site is currently about 97% impervious, almost completely covered in asphalt, gravel, or building. There is no notable stormwater detention system or best management practices on site. And with that being said, I'll move on to the proposed condition.
Our seat is vacant.
As we mentioned before, we are proposing a 5-story hotel building as well as a 5-story parking garage and cannabis cultivation center. The existing site will also be split into two separate lots. For clarity, we'll be referring to the hotel lot on the left-hand side of the page as Lot A, and the parking garage / cultivation center lot as Lot B on the right-hand side. So the main changes that we have are, when we last presented to the board, we had an ingress entrance on the east side of the property, and egress on the west. This was one in, one out. Based on the comments by the board, as well as review from the Department of Transportation, we've revised the plan to have a two-way exit and entrance on the west side of the property. This is gonna help with people not driving by the entrance, getting confused and missing it, as well as will improve circulation on the site. The other main change that we have is adding another ADA parking space to meet the requirement of 7 ADA parking spaces on site, as well as shuffling around some parking. One other change that is on the top left side, we have our trash enclosure has been rotated and for ease of access as well. And an added benefit of that is we're reducing the intensity of one of the requested variances, which was the side yard setback of 9.5 feet. It is now 10 feet from the west property. In the proposed condition, we are reducing impervious coverage by about 30%. We're adding over an acre of open space, grass, and plantings, including 174 trees on site. The site is compliant with all bulk zoning requirements, all major bulk zoning requirements outlined in the redevelopment plan. With the improvements to stormwater, we're improving the water quality of the site, as well as reducing peak runoff by increasing this proposed landscaping on site. In the existing condition, the runoff on the site runs about 50% to the rear and 50% to the front. That's about half going to the Rahway River directly, and then half of the runoff going to the DOT right-of-way. We're maintaining these existing drainage patterns and just simply reducing the total runoff, which is in compliance with all the DEP stormwater requirements. Speaking of stormwater, the Rahway River, which is, as I mentioned, adjacent to the site, does have a 50-foot riparian zone associated with it, as well as a flood hazard elevation of 84 feet. Neither of these impact the site, as the river is more than 54 feet away from the existing property line, and the entire site is well above the flood elevation, and doors are approximately 6 feet above that. We're proposing 268 total parking spaces. 210 of them will be within the parking garage, and then an additional 58 on the surface. The requirement on site is for 239 parking spaces, so we're above the minimum. Although one deviation from the redevelopment plan is that there is a maximum parking of 110 spaces, or 110% of the required minimum. The max allowable would be 263 parking spaces, where we are proposing 268. This would be a deviation, and and a C variance that we are requesting as part of this application.
And just for a moment, that is one of the reductions from the deviations from the prior plan, correct?
Correct. In our last testimony, before we made these revisions to the site, we were requesting 274 spaces. We have reduced that by 6 by adjusting the handicap accessible parking and moving them closer to the hotel building, increasing the size of the loading zones so that they are more accessible to the box trucks that would be doing deliveries on site, and adding some green space in areas where we were able to. We've also reached out to local utility providers and received will-serve letters from sewer, gas, electric, and telecom. All utilities will be pulled from the Route 22 right-of-way. That's where they're all currently running. It'll be similar to the existing addition, although we are removing all of the existing utility connections and replacing them with new ones.
And just for the benefit of the board, the proposed uses, the hotel and the cannabis cultivation and manufacturing facility, they're approved permitted uses under the redevelopment plan, correct?
Correct, yeah. Like I mentioned before, everything here is by right. The proposed hotel, parking garage, and cannabis cultivation are all permitted uses in the redevelopment plan. As well as the temporary grow, which will be taking place in the existing banquet hall, as Mr. Kosky mentioned, for a period of 12 months, pending approval. We've also modeled the lighting on site. There are a few deviations from the redevelopment plan based on just logistics of the site. Lighting is a little tricky to hit all the minimums and all the maximums exactly as you want. The main deviations are where the minimum is proposed. One moment.
And if I may, when you say a deviation, could you explain that further, that the redevelopment plan sets a standard and we're requesting that the board allow us to either not fully comply with it?
Correct. So the redevelopment plan specifies that, for example, one of them is that the minimum lighting on site be 0.3 foot candles at all points. On our site, we have a few areas, isolated pockets, mainly in corners or in grass areas, where we have 0 foot candles, so there's no illumination there. For that one, that's mainly in the top corner where we're adjacent to the county right-of-way. And in this back corner, again, we're in the county right-of-way, away from any pedestrian traffic, away from any vehicular traffic, and things like that. We also have one deviation from the maximum lighting level at a property line. That is a function of 2 items. As I mentioned before, this is a subdivision plan as part of this application. There is a property line running through the center of this drive aisle. It would be unwise to have 0 lighting at that property line, as it is in the center of a drive aisle, so that we can't really comply with the maximum, or with the maximum of 0.5 foot candles. It wouldn't be sufficiently illuminated for pedestrians or vehicles. There's also a bit of overlap of the lighting on the west property line over here, and in the modeling along this back property line as well. We don't think this is going to be any concern, as on the west edge, that is a car dealership. Car dealerships are generally very illuminated. They like to have it as lit as possible at all times. And then to the rear, there's tree cover. There's proposed trees as well, which will be blocking light from overreaching the property line. For the purposes of being more conservative, we don't model trees or those kind of obstructions, just to be safe and so that we know what we're dealing with. There's one more deviation I'd like to mention, moving on from lighting. There is a minimum setback for drive aisles specified in the redevelopment plan of 10 feet away from a property line. Just similar to the lighting, that I just mentioned, there's a property line that runs in the center of the drive aisle. It would not be possible to comply with that requirement. And we think that it will not be detrimental to this project whatsoever. I believe we think that this application would be a great benefit to the property because currently it is sitting in a almost completely vacant state. After concluding our site visit, we saw there's some dilapidation of the concrete, there's some underutilized areas. We think that this hotel, as well as the Cannabis Cultivation Center, would bring more people to the area. It would improve the site dramatically from a stormwater perspective, from a traffic perspective, and just for the community overall. We think it's very nice that I don't get to say this usually, but we're adding over an acre of grassland and landscaping. Generally, developers are trying to maximize the property as much as possible, and it's a nice change of pace to be able to add all that greenery. That concludes my direct testimony. I'm happy to answer any questions, or I can move on to the engineering review letter dated January 22nd.
Why don't we go through the engineering review letter? That way, that might address any questions.
Piecemeal, we'll do it all at the same time.
Sure.
Good idea.
So some of these I addressed in testimony, but I'll just run through a couple of them very quickly. Planning and zoning, comment 1.1.
If I may, sir, what document are you looking at?
I'm looking at the Colliers Engineering and Design letter dated January 22nd, 2024.
Thank you. Got it.
Actually, firstly, I'd like to address on page 2, the second paragraph, the first sentence is, the applicant proposes to use the current banquet hall as a temporary cannabis and cultivation facility during construction of the garage. The applicant anticipates using the banquet hall for this purpose for approximately 18 months. That's just, I think, a misunderstanding based on the redevelopment plan, and as Michael Koski added to the record before, that will be a period of 12 months.
All right, we talked about this. Can you slow down a little bit? Because
Yes.
we have new people here. And plus, I'm the chair. I've been doing this a long time. I'm losing you a little bit.
Okay.
Now you're on the second paragraph?
I'm on the second page.
Right.
And the second paragraph after the bullets.
Where it says the 4.15 acre?
Yeah, the paragraph after that, where it says the applicant
Okay, good.
proposes.
Thank you, sir.
And the only change
Might I
that,
ask what brought about the change? Originally, the thought was your schedule was going to be 18 months.
That was the original discussion with the township, but the township has taken the position that the temporary facility may only be used for 12 months. And that's 12 months from the final approval as that's defined in the redevelopment agreement. So that's where the 12 months comes from.
So you feel comfortable with 12 months?
We believe so, yes.
And what happens if you don't hit 12 months?
The township has been very clear.
That'll be embodied in the redevelopment agreement.
Oh, yes, yeah, everything will be in the redevelopment agreement, and it's clear that the use of the temporary facility is limited to 12 months.
Let me ask you this. Did Hyatt have anything to do with that reduction from 18 months to 12 months?
I can ask the applicant, but I can tell you I've been involved with the negotiations with the township, and that has come directly from the township.
Because as I understand it, the construction of the Hyatt Hotel cannot begin until that garage is built and the cannabis cultivation.
That's correct, yes. So there'll be further testimony later, but the township is willing to accept a phased demo, obviously. So all the improvements besides the banquet hall will be demoed immediately. Construction of the parking garage will commence. The temporary use facility will be allowed for 12 months. And at the end of that 12 months, then phase 2 of the demo begins, and that banquet hall is going to be required to come down under the current draft of the redevelopment agreement, which again, this has been a position that the township has held for a couple of months now, and it doesn't seem that they are going to move off of that.
Question on the DOT.
Yes,
I read their letter, which I assume you received a copy of.
correct, yes.
They point out in their letter that they did not like the idea that you were discharging roof drainage from the hotel into their system. What's going to be your response to that?
So one thing that I found unclear about that letter is they said direct discharge from the roof. To me, when I read that, I understood it as a direct line from the roof to the sewer in the public right-of-way. On our stormwater plan, we don't have it being routed directly through there. It's going through, I believe, 3 structures before it reaches the right-of-way. We will work with the,
What are the structures?
they're catch basins and manholes. We don't have any proposed detention on site. So
I got the impression that they were looking for detainage.
yeah, so, that's something that we have to work through with, the DOT. We have a couple of possible options. If they force us to detain, then that's something that we can't really avoid, although we are compliant with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection's standards. Another option would be to change some of the routing on site to have all of the roof drainage discharged to the Rahway River and then kind of shuffle around how the grading works. That's obviously not ideal, but the general layout of the site would not change, as opposed to adding some sort of detention system if that's required.
That last option would necessitate a major revamp of your grading plan.
Potentially, yes.
I don't know how the board would feel about having that as a condition of an approval.
Yeah, having the approval from the DOT first.
Approval of this board.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I follow. That if we were to revamp the grading, that we'd have to resubmit? Is that
Your discussions with the DOT would conclude with a necessity to provide detainage or rerouting of the stormwater from one of the drainage areas to the Rockland River. That would necessitate review of the site plan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we can agree with that being a condition of approval. That would be a fairly major change in the site
Well,
plan.
I guess my point is, would the board feel comfortable in having that listed as a condition of approval? Or would they rather see what the grading plan would look like after you conclude negotiations with the DOT?
Understood.
Yeah, I think that's something we
That
can
would be
talk,
left up to
we can caucus on that later. Yeah, we can caucus on that.
Okay,
After we take a break, we'll caucus together and we'll discuss that, okay?
no problem.
Okay.
Is there any more questions about that, or shall I move on? All right, moving through the letter, comment 1.1. RP section VD 8A requires minimum side yard setback for accessory structures, trash disposal facilities of 20 feet, whereas the proposed side yard setback is 10.4 feet, a bulk C variance. I touched on this when I discussed the changes from the older site plan to the proposed. We were previously requesting a variance for 9.5 feet where 20 is required. We have reduced that to 10.4 to be closer to compliance with the redevelopment plan. Similarly, on comment 1.5, RP section VID 2 requires a minimum, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. On comment 1.7, RP section VEID sets maximum parking requirement based on 110% of the parking demand, or 263 parking spaces. whereas the applicant is proposing 268 parking spaces of bulk C variance. As I mentioned before, again, we were previously requesting a variance for 274 spaces. We have reduced that by 6 by shuffling around some of the parking and other items on site, so that variance has also been lessened. Moving on, comment 3.4. The applicant proposes a 5-story structure, 203,574 square foot garage to house cannabis cultivation and parking for 210 vehicles. Applicant is providing 58 ground level spaces, including 6 handicap parking spaces and 11 EVSE make-ready parking spaces. The applicant is proposing a total parking supply of 268. Again, I just wanted to clarify that we are proposing 7 handicap parking spaces in compliance with the state, local, and federal legislature. That is also addressed later on in the review letter where it's noted as 7 handicap spaces. I believe that's just a comment from the last review letter that got carried over. Comment 3.7, applicant shall testify on the environmental condition of the property, specifically whether any existing buildings with heated and fuel oil stored in underground fuel tanks, oil storage tanks. The environmental impact statement only indicates fuel tanks in the basement of the building. Since our last hearing, we have submitted the environmental phase 1 assessment. In that assessment, it clearly states that at the time of the assessment, there were 2 above ground oil tanks which were found on site, one of which had been removed. The other one, I believe, is still in the basement of one of the buildings. During demolition, it is our plan to remove that tank and do any mitigation which is required, although it is stated in the phase 1 assessment that there is no contamination and no need for further assessment. That being said, in the last hearing, it was also brought up by
Mr. Johnston.
By Mr. Johnson, thank you, that was there any concern of underground oil tanks which were not found in the survey? We reviewed the phase 1 assessment a little more thoroughly. We found that there were 2, I believe, underground tanks which were found on site, and they were removed in 1997 as well as the year 2000, and a letter of no further action was granted by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection.
I'm glad you followed up on that, sir. Do we have, because I know that's also a question I asked, do we have copies of those letters? Are they in the package here?
We do not. We were looking for them. We couldn't get a hold of them. We reached out to we went through like an Oprah request and tried to find them and had no luck. But Mr. Koski does have some documents that he was able to find today.
If I may. Mr. Hollow, could I mark this as applicant 1?
Sure.
Sure. Mr. Koski is handing out a couple documents. I actually do have a copy of this. Actually, this is easier. The document that Mr. Koski just handed out is a summary of the tanks that were found on site. You can see that, actually they were removed a little earlier than I stated. It looks like the removal date for the tank 1, which is on page 1, was removed in 1995. It looks like it is a 1,000 gallon, I believe, gasoline tank. And the second tank, which was removed in June of the year 2000, was a heating oil tank that was 10,000 gallons.
What's the source of this, Prem?
This is, go ahead. This was pulled from the DEP records.
DEP website, and did you go on the website?
The New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection data miner website. You can pretty much search any property in the state.
Thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, they didn't have the.
You had mentioned having received or knowing of letters of no action. Would you happen to have copies
Of the letter?
those related to these 2 tanks?
We haven't been able to locate those letters. We just have we just have them noted in the Phase 1 assessment. But we've reached out to the DEP and haven't heard back from them for that letter yet. Are there any more questions about the tanks?
I can continue. There are going to be more questions.
Okay.
Continue.
Moving on in the letter, comment 3.8, the applicant proposes a 6-foot-high white vinyl fence along the west, north, and east sides of the property. That was in the original design, but that has since been revised. The 6-foot-high white vinyl fence is only along the eastern property. There's also an existing chain link fence, that is the border between us and the car dealership. That vinyl fence just gives it a little bit of a nicer facade along that chain link fence, as well as provide some added security on that side. There is an existing chain link fence along the rear property that belongs to the county. But the proposed vinyl fence is only along that east property line. Comment 4.6, the applicant shall testify if it intends to comply with NJDOT Regional Permit Office comments included in its November 14th, 2023 letter requiring the detainage of hotel roof drain water prior to the connection to the NJDOT system. Mr. Hader already touched on this a little bit, but we are in talks with the DOT and will comply with whatever they require. Upon that time, we will keep the board engineer updated on any changes to the site.
What have they told you so far, sir? What's been their input?
So far, they've just made the initial comment. We haven't resubmitted to the DOT yet.
Okay.
But we've dealt with these kind of things in the past, and we feel confident that we can work something out with them.
Okay.
Comment 4.8, the applicant shall request a meeting with the NJDEP to determine if an individual flood hazard area permit will be required. We've spoken with the DEP about the flood hazard. I touched on this in testimony as well. We are well outside of the riparian zone, which would trigger this permit, as well as significantly higher than the flood. So it is determined that no individual flood hazard permit will be required.
Did they send it to you in writing, sir?
I'd have to check, but I believe I just have it in a phone call, but I can certainly try to get something in
All
writing.
right. Do you know the name of the person you spoke with? All right, maybe you can get that for us.
Yeah, I can try to get that.
If you could, that'd be good. Thank you very much. Either or, a letter or the name of the person that you spoke with, that'd be great. Thank you.
Moving on to comment 6.4. The applicant proposes 2 8-inch sanitary lateral connections at the 10-inch sewer main in Route 22 West. Applicant shall inspect the integrity of the sewer main between manholes 23 and 22 prior to making the connections and share the CRTV data with the township engineer. We can comply with this and get that sewer inspected prior to connection to it. Comment 7.5, the applicant has provided truck turning templates in the loading zone and trash disposal areas. However, a single unit box truck with a height of 13.5 feet must clear the porte cochere where the clearance height is not provided. We have spoken with the architect. The porte cochere has a clearance, I don't remember the exact number, but I believe it's north of 20 feet. And then the 2 rear overpasses have a clearance height of 14 feet. We'll get that noted on the plans and make sure that that's very clear. Comment 8.4, the subdivision plan C17 shall include all bearings, distances included, missing between the hotel and garage. We'll coordinate with that with our survey team and get an updated survey submitted, or updated subdivision plan with all that information on it.
Could we go back to 7.6?
Yes, we can. 7.6, the 47.75 foot long fire truck must back up about 300 feet from the north side of this garage. in order to exit the property. I defer to the fire department to determine if this maneuver is feasible.
If I could, I think our traffic engineer was going to touch upon that, if that's acceptable.
Sure.
Yeah, so our traffic engineer will touch on that. And then, I believe the last one I wanted to note was 8.7, the plan shall be revised to provide note indicating the entire site will comply with ADA regulations. We have no problem adding any of those notes to our plans. Other than that, we don't see any issue complying with the entire engineering review letter as it stands, and obviously we will resubmit plans to the board engineer and coordinate any changes.
Is that the end of your presentation?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm open to questions now.
Okay, questions from the board?
Just a point of
the board.
clarification, can you show 1.8 on the map, please? That's a zero
Where
setback.
the 0-foot setback?
Yeah.
1.8 is where this property line runs through the center of the drive aisle, and that is why there's a 0-foot setback with the drive aisle.
Okay. Thank you.
Related to that subdivision line, we need the bearing and distances on the subdivision plan.
Yeah, we will comply with that, that's not a problem.
And you'll also need to speak with the assessor so that before you file the minor subdivision with the county, you'll have learned what the actual lot numbers are. And it won't be Lot A and Lot B.
Yeah.
We certainly will.
Okay?
What is your, from beginning to end, what's your time frame for finishing this project, sir?
That would be more the construction questions, I think.
Okay.
The owner's representative will be able to answer that better than I can.
How many driveways are on the property?
There's only one driveway connecting to the public right-of-way.
Have you addressed that with the DOT?
We have, that is based on the DOT comments, although we have not resubmitted that plan to them yet.
And we don't have a letter from them yet?
We don't have an additional letter aside from the November 22nd letter, I believe.
Okay. And another question, sir. Do you have any information? I'm looking at this final recommendation for a light. Do you have any information on that, or should we go to the owner for that?
On, what is that?
License?
The owner will be able to speak to that,
Yeah,
yes.
okay, great, thank you. All right. And I trust in the Department of Agriculture letter that you got. Is that what you were referring to before?
The Department of Transportation.
Yes, I know. And you also have another letter from the Department of Agriculture, this one?
I'm not sure which letter you were talking about.
I can give it to you if you like. I was just wondering if you had done all the instructions they took, that they told you to do. The reason I asked is quite a few.
It looks like that is from the Soil Conservation District, I believe,
Right.
and we have submitted to them. I don't believe we've gotten comments yet, but, or it looks like those are comments, but yeah, we will comply with all their comments and make sure we get approval from the
Okay.
Conservation District.
You know if you're currently, is something you're going to do down the road, or have you already done it?
Yeah, I think we've been, yes, we have submitted. Oh, actually, I have an approval from the Soil Conservation District on 829. I'll review that letter and make sure that whoever it's addressed from,
If you can get us approval letter, that'd be great.
yeah, I can do that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Are you referring to the letter from the Soil Conservation District? I think it's, I'm looking for a date here.
I have it as approved on August 29th.
Okay,
I don't have a copy of the letter with me,
I
unfortunately.
understand. I note the copy that I'm reading from, that they require written notification prior to the start of land disturbance.
Correct.
I got one. Sorry, just one second. If you go on your camera, on the display here, And this is really more about me not knowing what it means. On the upper left side, it says at least one signature has problems. Do you see that?
Over here?
I'm sure it's a technical thing, but do you have any idea what that means? At least,
The signature
upper
pad?
left, next to the warning sign.
Oh, yeah, so.
I'm sure it's a technical thing, but I just want
Yeah, so basically, when we submit to certain municipalities, I think these plans might have gone to the DEP, they require a very specific signature on the plans that is, I don't know, unhackable or something.
Okay,
And then when you read it on certain PDF viewers, it just pops up weird.
okay. Yeah, I figured that was the case. I
Yeah.
just wanted to verify. I'm sorry, Jeff, you wanted a question?
Did I read somewhere where the hotel's going to store some of the cultivation center's product?
No, they're completely separate.
No, so,
About the banquet hall
so currently, there's a banquet hall on site,
at the hotel?
separated from the hotel, but the hotel is closed right now. So as noted earlier, the plan is to demo all the improvements except for the banquet hall. So at a point in time, the banquet hall will be the only improvement on that building. That will be used as a temporary facility for cannabis cultivation and manufacturing as the garage improvement is being built. Again, the temporary facility pursuant to the agreement with the township is limited to 12 months. So the hotel cannot be built until the banquet hall is demoed. So at no point will the hotel be on the same property or parcel with the temporary facility.
May I
Thank you.
ask, do you have any sense at all, should all of this be accomplished and all the submissions that are not submitted be submitted, when you intend to try to start demoing?
So the current agreement, or draft agreement with the township provides that demolition must begin 60 days after final non-appealable approval has been granted. So what that means is if the board were to approve this tonight and then adopt a resolution at its February 22nd meeting, we would wait 45 days to allow any appeal period to run. And from that date, we would have 60 days to commence the demolition. And there's also timeframes with respect to the demolition of the temporary facility. So the temporary facility must begin within 12 months of final non-appealable approval.
And all of those who would be licensed to perform the licensed cannabis manufacturers' licenses will be still intact at that point in time? Voodoo Brothers?
I believe right now those licenses have a date of June 24th,
29?
29th. But obviously, we would request that they be renewed or extended.
I suggest that's a good idea.
Sir, do you have your letter that's dated, I don't think I have it in my package. Excuse me. Your letter dated January the 12th, 2024? Because I'm looking for here, I don't think I have it.
January, and addressed from Colliers.
This is from the architect.
The architect will speak on that
He
when
will?
he testifies, yes.
Oh, great, okay, thank you. All right, so summary of documents that we're looking for, if we could, so there's no questions. There was a letter from the Department of Transportation we're waiting for?
Not the department, we still have to resubmit to the Department of Transportation, and we can provide any review letter from them
Okay.
upon approval.
And I know when you spoke with the Environmental Protection, you're gonna get the name of the person that you spoke with, or just a letter?
Yeah, I'll email them and try to get something in writing saying that we're exempt.
Yeah, that's it, okay. How long do you figure that'll take?
I consider it's a DEP, at least, probably a couple weeks.
Couple weeks, okay. And you've confirmed that I'll take your word for this one, I'll take your word that you already signed up with the Department of Agriculture?
Yeah, I'll review that.
All right, can you just confirm that with us?
Yeah, I can confirm that with you guys.
Let's see.
Do you happen to have the date of that agricultural letter so I can find it in my records?
August 29th, 2023?
Thank you.
6.4. All right, and if we could return to the letter from Collier 6.4.
Yes.
It says the applicant shall inspect the integrity of the sewer main. You see that?
Yes.
Has that been done?
I don't believe it's been done yet. No.
Okay, let's
So
get-
once
let's-
we will get that
let's get that
organized
done,
and
okay.
share the video and the report with the
Let's
township.
get that done, okay?
Yep.
And that's all questions that I have. I do have.
Oh, no, I just wanted to be sure, Mr. Hutter, I know you had mentioned the turning radius and template and the fact that a emergency vehicle may have to try to back out on Route 22. Would you clarify that?
Yeah, I think what they said was their
Our traffic engineer is prepared to address that.
Okay. I do remember that.
Any questions from the board?
I do.
Steve?
Yeah. I do want to return back to the November 14 letter provided by DOT. And I just want to reconfirm for the record that the plan that you're presenting to us tonight has not been, that plan that you're showing us tonight is not the plan that they've assessed based on that November 14th letter.
Correct. The November 14th letter was based on the plan which we presented on November 22nd, I believe.
Okay.
And that was the one that had the 2 drive aisles.
And so as you're presenting this plan to us tonight, I did take a look at the DOT letter, and I wanted to just ensure that there were specific things that if you can point out on the plan, in particular on page 7 of the DOT's letter, provide signage by the ingress driveway showing that tractor trailers and bigger trucks are not allowed. Is there signage now on the site plan, and can you just point where that would be?
I don't believe those updates have been made because we've been focusing on this review as opposed to DOT response. But our traffic engineer will be able to hit a little bit more about the letter, but as of right now, I don't believe that change has been made yet.
Okay. And there was also another comment right before that, comment 16, the lot line separating the hotel and the car dealership eastbound should be curbed. Is that reflected on the plan?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I want to go back to, I think, sorry, was there? No. I do want to go back to the engineer's letter on, I do believe, page 2, the second to last paragraph, where the current banquet hall would be used as a temporary cannabis cultivation facility. Just moments ago, I think I heard, Council, that you said that it's used for cultivation and manufacturing. Can you clarify for the record, is it cultivation only for the temporary use of the banquet hall, or is it both cultivation and manufacturing?
If I could ask the applicant's representative when he gets up to testify, just to clarify that issue,
Okay.
because I may have misspoke.
Okay. Well, okay, thank you for that. I do believe that's just all my questions so far. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
I don't know if you're the person to ask. The fire alarm system, was that through you? Do you have knowledge of that, or is that for someone else?
No, that would be either the owner.
The architect will be able
Okay.
to respond to that. It's part of the design.
Okay, I'll wait. Thank you.
And since we're on that topic, what kind of security system will the facilities have, or has that been planned out yet?
So the facility will comply with not only the township's cannabis licensing requirements, but obviously also the state. The applicant's representative will be able to go into much greater detail on what's being provided.
Sorry, I did have another question with regards, it was in, it was in conjunction with signage, driveways, and things of that nature. With your revised plan, with moving now the ingress and egress down to the left leftmost side of the property, what kind of signage is on the property to allow a patron to know when to turn into the property?
A signage package has not been provided as of yet.
Okay.
That will be in compliance with all of the local, the municipality requirements. In our initial conversations, I believe we were planning on a monument sign somewhere in the middle. That's another reason that we changed from the ingress and egress on the east side, because we wouldn't be able to put any signage, obviously, before the property if the ingress driveway is right at the property line, essentially. So we were concerned that people would miss that entrance, have to loop all the way around, and then come back, do 2 U-turns to get back into the property if they miss the hotel on the first pass. So this allows patrons to see the signage, to see the actual hotel, and go, oh, there's the Hyatt, I'm turning here.
Okay.
Now, when you say signage, what are you talking about, like the advertising or putting?
Just like a monument sign that would say like Hyatt Hotel.
Okay, since we're on the topic of Hyatt Hotel, will we be hearing from Hyatt?
I believe Hyatt has reviewed the floor plans and given an initial approval. I'm not sure if it's their policy to contact the municipality, but I certainly can find out for you.
Did they give us a letter, or like a representation letter or anything like that?
We have a fully executed franchise agreement with them.
Okay, great, if we could have that, that'd be great. Yeah, yeah, I just want something that documents the agreement between yourselves and Hyatt, so we can,
Okay. Is that okay if I go through it and redact anything that potentially could be confidential?
Please, yeah, I don't want work product, attorney-client, I don't want that stuff, so if you could. But if you can get that, that'd be great, too. Okay. Any other questions from the board? Questions from the public? Yes, sir, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you for your time.
And your next witness, counsel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to call Nicholas Kennedy, traffic engineer from Stonefield Engineering.
Sir, please raise your right hand.
Do you swear the testimony that you'll give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Nicholas Kennedy. That's Kennedy. I work for Stonefield Engineering and Design, located at 92 Park Avenue in Rutherford. Sorry. In Rutherford, New Jersey.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Can you confirm that you were at the November 20th, 2023 meeting and testified at that hearing?
Yes, that is correct.
For the benefit of the board, could you give your current position and educational background?
Sure, I'm a project engineer at Stonefield Engineering and Design. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. My license is current and in good standing. I hold a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from the University of Hartford, and I've prepared over 100 traffic studies throughout the state.
Mr. Chairman, we would ask that he qualify as an expert traffic engineer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kennedy, could you describe to the board the traffic report that you prepared?
Sure. I'll kind of go into the traffic report first and then some of the review letters. I know there's been some questions about the DOT letter and then as well as the township engineer's review letter. So again, just for some background on the site, it's located along Route 22 West in the township of Union. Route 22 provides 3 lanes of westbound travel and then a 10-foot shoulder, so 3 through lanes going past the site and then a 10-foot shoulder. Again, as we've kind of talked about here tonight, the jurisdiction of the roadway is the NJDOT. We have submitted to them initially back before November. Our first review letter came in November. We've made some changes, which I'll go through, in my following testimony, and then some of the comments we've had and what we plan to submit back to them after this meeting. So going into the site itself, as Mr. Nona testified, existing on the site today is a vacant banquet hall and hotel, and then proposed is a 235-room hotel and a cannabis cultivation facility. What we do in the industry is we look at the trip generation of the site, utilizing the Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation manual. So what we did was we compared the site as it is today. If it were fully occupied, I do know it is vacant today, but at some point it could have been fully occupied, and compare that to the proposed use. What we found was generally consistent trip generations during each peak hour between what was on the site previously and what is proposed as part of this application. That's mentioned in the Township Engineer's Review Letter that there would be no significant increase in traffic. As we all know, Route 22 carries a lot of vehicles per day, about 100,000, about 8,000 per peak hour, and the proposed development would not have a significant impact on the traffic operations of Route 22 or the surrounding roadway network. Excuse me. Moving a little more into the circulation and parking actually on the site. Again, as Mr. Nona testified to, we have a few changes to the plans. I'll start with the parking. We did reduce the parking supply by 6 spaces. Again, that's due to an addition of an ADA space and then widening the loading zones on the site, which I can point out on here. This loading zone adjacent to the cultivation facility, and then in the rear of the hotel, those were widened from 30 feet to 50 feet to better accommodate the delivery vehicles. So again, we went from 274 parking spaces in the previous plan to 268 parking spaces in this plan. I think kind of one of the bigger questions here, and definitely the DOT's biggest concern, was the driveway. Again, as Mr. Nona mentioned, we have switched the driveway configuration to one right-in, right-out driveway combined, rather than a right-in driveway on the easterly portion of the site and a right-out driveway on the westerly portion. This, in my opinion, was the biggest of the DOT comments, and it generally stems from their requirements for driveway spacing. The property adjacent to us, the car dealership's driveway, is right on the edge of the property line, and even the radius of that driveway goes over the property line. So where the driveway exists today and where we originally proposed that ingress driveway was pretty much right next to it, which provided little to no spacing between the two. The DOT requires at least 24 feet of space between driveways. Therefore, we decided to shift the driveway. Working on a lot of applications like this, the DOT would prefer to have that one access point rather than, shifting the ingress driveway 24 feet in where it's sort of awkwardly would be in front of the building. They would rather have it towards the end of the property. Like Mr. Nona said, if you see the site, you're not going to pass a driveway and then try to get in the egress driveway. I think this location provides the safest and most effective location for the driveway. Additionally, there would be no issues as far as the location all the way to the west, considering the Rahway River is right next to us. You simply can't put another driveway on the adjacent development, so there'd be no driveway spacing issues to the west. Sort of getting into the rest of the DOT letter. Sorry, just flip open. Most of the comments are pretty general DOT comments, I'd say. There's a bunch of comments about call-outs and notes, traffic control notes, some signing and striping. A few of the striping and signage comments will go away with the relocation of the driveway. I know there was a few comments about do not enter signs and such, which naturally without the one-way drive aisle anymore, you don't need do not enter signs. And again, that overarching larger comment was about the driveway, and we believe this satisfies their criteria and concerns about the original location. Again, we will have to resubmit. In turn, we'll get another review letter, similar to submissions with the township. It's very much back and forth. We submit, get a review letter, and we'll forward any review letter we get after submission.
When do you anticipate getting that, sir?
I'd say we'll submit within the next couple weeks. I think kind of our plan was to get the township's feeling on the location of the driveway, make sure all parties are happy with the design, and so I'm sure we'll resubmit within the next couple weeks, getting another review letter probably 2 months.
And you'll get it to us when you...
Yeah, once we have it, we can forward it.
Great, thank you.
I think Mr. Nona touched...
Can we just go back to the full-service driveway at the western end of the property? I like the idea, but combining it with a monument sign which was, I think, suggested by the earlier testimony. You would need to be careful not to obstruct the view, okay, sight distance. So we're going to, if you wind up installing a monument sign, giving the drivers advance notice of the upcoming driveway entrance, you'll have to superimpose the sight distance.
I totally agree. Sight distance is paramount on a road like this. It's a high-speed roadway, so, you know, being able to see cars actually traveling on Route 22 as you're coming out of a driveway is definitely, you know, top concern, a safety concern. So we'll make sure that sign is outside of any sight triangle.
Okay.
Great. Moving on to the township review letter, which again was dated January 22nd, 2024. For some clarity, I am looking at page 8 and pretty much the whole traffic and circulation section, so section 7. Excuse me. I'll kind of go through all of these, considering there's only 6. We did provide the township truck turns. I will go over the fire truck turn. As you mentioned, I think, in the last comment here, I'll get there. But we did provide the township fire truck turns. As Mr. Nona mentioned, all of the vehicles that would be on the site would be able to clear the overhangs. They would be at least 14 feet. The maximum delivery truck would be 13 and a half feet, so they would fit under the overhangs in the rear of the building. And then I believe, like Mr. Nona said, the front overhang is 20 plus feet, so they would be able to fit.
So it's not north of 20 feet, you're saying it's 14?
I'm sorry, the 2 overhangs in the rear of the property, those are 14 feet. I believe the front overhang is somewhere north of 20 feet. We can have the architect give an exact number. I just don't have that off the top of my head. Moving down, the next 2 comments I think are generally about the trip generation and the impacts of traffic. As I mentioned, the traffic volume associated with the site would not have a negative impact. Our study took a conservative analysis. I believe one board member brought up, you know, possible shuttles or transit. There's a bus station right outside our site. We took the most conservative approach, and considering every trip a passenger car trip rather than, you know, 15% of people might use the bus, that reduces your trip gen. We analyzed it in the maximum amount of cars that could be possible coming into and out of the site. Going through down to 7.4, we've talked a lot here about the NJDOT. We will keep all correspondence from the DOT and get it to the township as soon as we have it. But again, I think our redesign of the driveway is something that they will appreciate and accept as part of our next submission. 7.5, I kind of just touched on the clearance under the overhangs in the rear and the front. And then getting to 7.6. So our original truck turns did show the fire truck driving up, if you could just follow my mouse, driving up towards the back of the
Nick, are you able to zoom in a little further on that specific area?
Okay. So it showed the fire truck driving up towards the back of the cultivation center, stopping at naturally where the drive aisle ends, and then backing down the drive aisle and turning around and egressing the site. We have had some correspondence with the fire chief, generally just getting the specifications of the truck, the height, the length. We have not received any review of the actual turns we submitted themselves. So again, that movement of the fire truck to, you know, see if he gave his blessing or okay. We have brainstormed a few other ideas on how to actually make the fire truck turn around back there. But again, we haven't received any review from the fire chief himself.
Did you ask for one, sir?
Have you presented that
I
option?
I figured with our submission, the fire chief would get,
Oh, yeah, you don't want to assume that.
okay. We will certainly submit any terms and, any revisions we need to make based on,
Yeah, because the concern is this is going to be it's going to be a big building, and on any given day, there's going to be a lot of people there. And we don't want to be in a situation where we can't get our fire trucks in and out. And that's only because of the height of the building. It's going to be a very tall building. And so we just want to make sure that,
totally understand.
I would recommend that you continue your communications with the fire department to make sure you get something in writing from them as far as what their input is.
Yep, and as I mentioned, we'll definitely, get some writing from him on the terms themselves. But again, we've brainstormed a few other ideas. If, that's not accepted by the fire chief, we could come up with another idea of maybe eliminating parking spaces. getting
It's
started.
critical that we feel comfortable, that the fire department feel comfortable, because the amount of people that are going to be in, on any given day, that place is going to be packed,
Yep,
so.
totally agree. I think that was the last, just make sure. I think that was the last comment as far as traffic and circulation within the township engineer's review letter. Again, I touched on the DOT, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation, sir. It was very professional. Any questions from the board?
Yes, if in fact you brainstorm some ideas, I would like to hear some, at least a broad or brief concept of what that might be. The concept of having a fire truck back out of the driveway is not typical, I wouldn't imagine.
Yeah, so we would have it be backing, not out of the driveway per se, but backing down down this drive aisle, and then, kind of making a K-turn. One of our ideas was to eliminate about 7 or 8 parking spaces here, striping them so that the fire truck could pull up. I have run this truck turn myself, and it does work. It would pull up, back up, and pretty much make a K-turn, where at that point it's facing forward and could traverse the site in a forward direction, not a backwards one.
Certainly that seems safer.
I'm sorry?
Certainly that seems safer.
Yep, and I think, again, that's something we could definitely present to the fire chief, striping. At that point, we're eliminating some more parking spaces, actually probably would get rid of more parking.
And I believe the applicant would agree to make that as a condition of approval if that's what the fire chief requested.
And I'm sure you're going to have enough room for like police vehicles and EMTs and the other.
Yeah.
I think the big one would be the hook and ladders would be the big.
Usually we look to the fire truck because it's the biggest. Most other trucks, if the fire truck could do it.
Yeah, but if you get in a garage, getting a fire truck inside a garage, I imagine would be a little on the challenging side. So.
Yeah, I don't think the fire truck could get inside.
Yeah, well, that's the whole problem, yeah. So you got to make sure you talk to the fire department on that.
Yep, certainly.
That's an interesting concept, eliminating 7 parking spaces.
And
Because what that would do, it would eliminate one of your variances where you are providing more than 110% of what you're required to have. So one of your variances would disappear. And you do have a surplus of parking.
Yeah, I agree, and honestly, at that point, if you're gonna have that space striped, it could also be striped as a loading zone, which in turn gets rid of another variance, being that we currently have 3 loading zones where 4 are required. So I think, there's definitely a balance where there's some benefits of eliminating variances and being able to more efficiently and safely get that fire truck spun around, not backing up down the drive aisle.
Yeah, I would suggest talking to Greg Riccardi,
Yeah,
the fire chief.
that's who we've been in
about
some
that.
communication with, but certainly we will get a hold of him and, get a review on what we've done.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board?
Stephen? Yes. First question pertains to the trip generation comparison. How was the trip generation done for the proposed marijuana cultivation and manufacturing facility?
There is an ITE land use for marijuana cultivation and processing facility is the ITE name or code. It's Land Use Code 190. So what the ITE has done is they go out and sample real sites, they collect data, and then come up with an average in-out trip generation rate. So that's where that data comes from. It's based on the square footage of the site.
Sorry, that's probably my mic.
That's okay. So the data comes from the Institute of Transportation Engineers.
My follow-up question to that would be, is there a rule of thumb or heuristic in assessing the number of square footage that is proportional to the number of employees for that facility?
As in, I think I understand what you're saying is instead of using this square footage, you might utilize the employees in your trip generation.
Right. Or is there a relationship in that method, like through the methodology that they used, that they determined that there was a relationship with the square footage and number of employees, or?
I don't know exactly, but, you know, from working in the industry and on projects like this, I have to imagine there's a correlation. You know, if you have a larger square footage facility, naturally you would have more employees, thus, you know, larger square footage, more employees, there's some sort of correlation. What that correlation or number would be, employees per square foot, I don't know.
And that would, and I would assume that that would be a broader estimate, that it's that depending on what the facility use would be, cultivation versus manufacturing, or a hybrid of both, that there's no difference or distinguishing factor in how they assess and develop those numbers.
I don't believe so.
Okay. My second question pertains to parking, if you're able to answer it. If not, I apologize, and I'll save that question for the appropriate individual. With the parking spaces that are available, and with some that will be dedicated to hotel guests and things of that nature, I assume that because there will be trip generation as a result of employees of the cultivation and manufacturing facility, is there any kind of zoning, not in the context of land zoning, but zoning of parking spots for designation of employees or hotel guests, et cetera?
I'll do my best to explain, and if the architect needs to, you know,
Sure.
fix it. My understanding is the second level of the parking garage, there's 12, maybe 13 spaces that would be dedicated for the employees. It has to do with the path you would have to walk around the garage, whereas employees have a door they could key card into. My understanding is that those are the only designated spaces, but I will defer to the architect if there's any more.
Okay, thank you.
Questions from the board? Questions from the public? Why don't we take a 10-minute break?
I was going to suggest that, yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and thank you both to your witnesses. They were very, very helpful.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll reconvene the planning board meeting. Please proceed with your next witness, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next witness, I'd like to call the project architect, Mr. Shabazz Mazumdar.
Would you please raise your right hand, please?
Do you swear the testimony that you'll provide today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Will you please state or spell your
Say
name for
last
the
name,
record?
please.
Subhash Mazumdar, M-A-Z-U-M-D-A-R.
Thank you, Mr. Mazumdar.
Mazumdar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Mazumdar, are you employed by Design Services Plus?
Yes, I am.
And are you a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, I am.
Is your license currently active?
It's active.
How long have you been a licensed and practicing architect in the state?
In New Jersey, it's about 28 years now.
Okay. And has your license ever been revoked or suspended?
No.
Could you provide the planning board with your educational background?
I did my undergraduate in architecture in India, and then I took my master's from the University of Houston, Texas.
Have you ever testified as an expert in the field of architecture before this board or any other land use boards in the state?
Actually, I did it for this board.
Do you recall the date or approximate?
Not exactly the date, but it would be around 2017,
Okay, thank you.
17, 18, something like that.
Are you a licensed architect in any other state or jurisdiction?
Yes, I am in Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Jersey, and Maryland.
And you have experience testifying before boards in those states?
Yes, I did.
Mr. Chairman, I would request that he be qualified as an expert witness in the field of architecture.
I just got a couple quick
Sure.
questions. I know that you said you went to college in India.
Yeah, undergraduate in India,
Okay, what's the name of the school?
University of Calcutta.
University of Calcutta. And is that where you got your master's degree too, sir?
Sorry?
Is that where you got your master's degree too?
No, that's where I got my undergraduate.
Okay.
I did my master's from the University of Houston, Texas.
Texas, okay, great. So ordered.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, sir.
Chairman. Mr. Mazumdar, you previously testified that you are employed by Design Services Plus. Can you confirm that Bapu Corp. Contracted with Design Services Plus to prepare the architect plans that we're presenting tonight?
Yes.
And did your office, under your supervision, prepare the plans that were filed with the planning board?
Yep.
And are you familiar with the site of the subject property?
Yes.
Did your office also prepare the architect report that's dated January 12th, 2024, and submitted with the supplemental documentation?
Yeah.
Okay. And in preparing the plans and report, did you review the Clinton Manor redevelopment plan?
Yes, I did.
Okay. At this time, if you could describe and identify the plans, and I believe you have a PowerPoint that you can go through. And Mr. Chairman, I have copies, if we could mark one of the PowerPoints as applicant 2, and then
You want to
hand
mark
them
them
out.
into evidence?
This is, oh, okay. So this is basically the key plan showing the new hotel portion, and then this is the cultivation plan, and then that's Route 22 West. And then this is actually, the down is the project north, project south, project north, project east, and then project west. And then that's where the Subaru dealership is. And then this portion, this is mostly the fast food restaurants are pretty much very much commercial. Why I don't see that one? Yeah. This is kind of a direction that the brand has, and you can see later on our elevation, and then this is what the look itself we try to achieve on our proposed elevation.
And when you say that, it's the direction from Hyatt, right? This is what they want to see. It's not, it doesn't have to be specifically that, but this is the type of brand that Hyatt wants its buildings to look like.
Exactly. Here is, on one side, you'll see the south elevation of the proposed building, but the hotel. And on the left, you see the typical floor plan. It is a 5-story building, including the ground floor. First floor is not shown here, I will come next. But this floor, this is from the second floor, third floor, second, third, fourth, and fifth floor, which is mostly the hotel rooms combined. This is pretty much typical on every floor, from second to the fifth. And on the side, you can see the front elevation, which is the south elevation, which is actually facing the route towards 22 West. This is the ground floor plan, which mostly has the administrative part of it, and some offices, covered swimming pool at the back, and then the reception lobby, dining space, but also it has 3 rooms all the way on the back side of the building, on the left side. There are 3 bedrooms meaning that hotel rooms at the back. This is actually what I just mentioned they have on the first floor.
The various amenities that will be included on the first floor.
Various facilities are there. The dining, the restroom for the public, the swimming pool, gym as well. And of course, the lobby. That's the typical floor plan with all the bedrooms. It has 58 bedrooms on each floor, typical. There are different types of the bedrooms involved with the different sizes. Also, on in each floor, we have 6 handicap rooms as well. And you can see that we have the fire egress, so the stairs on each corner at the back, and the elevator shaft we have. You can see here and also here. And then the stairs there, and then on that side for the fire egress purposes. These are all different kind of room types. Also, it is called out different square feet. It's the smallest one is 300 square feet, and the largest one is 718 square feet. So all different sizes are involved on the same floor. This is the matrix that tells you the different types of the rooms and also the sizes and everything. This is, if you remember, the facade they have on the southeast corner facing the 22nd west, 22 west, at that corner, on the south and the east face, we have the features which actually, it's a metal cladding, composite metal cladding on the side to just emphasize the brand prototype features, that they like to have that focal point kind of a thing. It's just above the entrance lobby, but the main canopy there, and then it's above it. That's what the south elevation, which is facing the 22nd. This is the features I'm talking about. If I can get it, yeah. That's all these portions at the corner. This is the facing this is the south side, and on that side also, which is actually facing the garage. That corner itself is a composite metal cladding, but the rest of it upstairs is mostly stucco, and the windows are all fixed windows. In between the windows, you can see some decorative louvers, and on the first floor, we used mostly the brick on the first level. This is the face is the east, which is facing the garage, and we put the same features here on that corner, which is the composite metal cladding panels, and the rest of it all stuccos. But on the first floor, we put the bricks, brick veneer mostly. And then that's the entrance canopy from the south side of the building to the entrance lobby. And just to mention that we kept that height 59 feet 6 inches. 59 feet 6. The roof height from the grade. That's the north elevation, which is the rear part of the building. And it's mostly stucco, fixed windows, louvers, you know, the glazing. That's what we have. That's the west elevation. That's on the left side of the building completely. So that's also pretty much stucco. And you see that portion there, that's the metal features we have there. This is kind of a conceptual 3D model, which is telling that the locations of the building and the garage itself. Also, it's showing the canopy here. And then that's the garage, and then that's the hotel.
Mr. Mazumdar, before we go into the garage, let me just ask you a couple questions about the hotel. One point that was out of the engineer's report, the architect report dated January 12th, 2024, it had a typographical error. It identified 325 rooms instead of 235. Can you confirm that there are only 235 rooms on this project?
Yeah, there are only 235 rooms, 58 rooms on 4 different floors, and then 3 on the first floor.
Okay. And do you know, or can you confirm that Hyatt has reviewed and approved the current floor plans as shown tonight?
Yes, they have reviewed.
Correct. Thank you. Now, the hotel contains a terrace. What, if any, amenities will be located on that? And further to that point, will guests have access to the terrace of the hotel?
It's no access for the guest to the terrace, and then the terrace is mostly for the mechanical units to sit on, mostly. But we had one stairs is taking all the way to the terrace, just
that the access will be to the service people for to maintain the rooftop units.
And then, is an emergency standby generator proposed for the mechanical room? Has a decision been made for that yet?
That's not that I know of.
But if the owner decided to, there would be room for it in the mechanical room?
Oh, sure.
Okay. Okay. If you want to go through your garage design now.
This is the garage design on the east side of the hotel. The one thing I like to let you know that there is the hotel guest and the garage employee, the cultivation employees, cannabis cultivation, there is no common way to do. So always there is a restriction who can get into what. So the hotel guest has no access into the cultivation portion of the building, or the garage portion of the building. Even the employee, they have a separate access. I will go through it, and the hotel guest has another access into the garage spaces.
And just to expand upon that, it's not just hotel guests, right? There's security measures that specifically separate the cannabis cultivation portion of the building from the parking lot.
Yes.
Would that separation lead to some underutilized spaces then of parking? Like if we gave 60 to the cultivation center, but they only have 40 employees, do we then lose those parking spaces for the hotel?
So what I can tell you is there's going to be a cross easement between the two properties. So that easement will establish the use of the garage facility for hotel guests, hotel employees. So that would dictate the number of spaces provided for the hotel. As Mr. Mazumdar goes through his plans, you'll see that on the second floor, there are a specified number of parking spaces reserved specifically for the employees of the cannabis cultivation facility. But to answer your question generally, I don't think there will be any issues with wasted space if, for no reason alone, we are on the higher end of the number of parking spaces that are allowed. So there should be sufficient parking regardless.
If I may just comment or question at the same time. If I recall prior testimony, there were to be approximately 60 employees and 15 part-times, if I recall. I think I'm right.
The applicant's representative will be able to respond to that. I don't recall that specifically.
It's just in consideration for the entirety of the parking. Certainly there are numerous spaces. However, there will be 235 rooms with perhaps 235 cars or more, plus the 60, plus the 11 dedicated for EV.
I would think 60 employees might be a little high. Okay.
The garage slash the cannabis cultivation center, that's actually 5-story above the grade and then 1 story below the grade. So there is a basement there. This plan you're looking at, that's for the basement. And then this is all growing purposes only. This one into the basement. And there is the access to the basement is only through that stairs and then these stairs which comes from the first floor. So there is no access directly from outside of the building into the basement. And this is the first floor, and you can see that there is one stairs here and another stairs there. That's the hotel, it's right here. So this one will be strictly used by the outsiders, And then that one is only for the people in this office, for the administrative people, for the cultivation center. And then they have on the first floor, mainly the offices for the employees, shower, bathrooms, and some break rooms, lobby kind of thing. And also right into the middle, they have the mechanical and the electrical room. All these access will be, will have the surveillance for at least all the time, 24/7, 365 a day. It will be the owner will probably will explain more about that access into the building. But there will be a lot of controls on the access, who can get in and who cannot. That's the second floor. Second floor also has the growing area, and that's where they have all these employee parking. This parking cannot be accessed by the office, anybody but from the office, because that door itself will be locked. Why my cursor goes away from oh, okay, yeah. I got it. Yeah. From this one, you cannot get onto this floor. That will be a mechanism involved right there. They can get into that one. And then in the middle is a growing place. That's the third floor. We have all the mechanical rooms, and also there are parkings. These parkings will be used by the outsiders. And then all the counting on the parking itself, 210 plus 58 outside. And that's the fourth floor, where we have labs and the associated rooms which goes with the lab itself, and we have the parking. This parking also for the outsiders. And then that's the fifth floor, the mechanical and the electrical rooms, and the parking. And at terrace level, it's all parking. The garage facade, two sides, which is actually facing the main street and the hotel. There will be a metal clad system on the exterior face, composite panel, and the metal louvers. And the entrances for the employee side, that building completely separated from the parking garage, function-wise, and from the hotel patrons. So one stairs completely for the employee there, and another one for the outsiders, including the hotel guest. These are the two access into the building.
Mr. Mazumdar, if I could just ask two follow-ups. Can you confirm that the plans you showed show 210 parking spaces
210?
in the garage?
Yeah.
Yes. And will those parking spaces be in compliance with the redevelopment plan in terms of size?
Yes.
If the board has any questions.
Question from the board?
Yes.
My first question pertains to numbers of rooms. There are discrepancies all over the place in the documents that I have reviewed. In your letter dated January 12th, there's a reference to 325 rooms, but the appendix of that letter on page 3 adds up to 227 rooms. And then on your presentation, on one of the slides, you have 235 rooms in the room matrix slide. So my first question is, can you clear the record in terms of how many rooms are there?
235.
And should we disregard the appendix to your letter on January 12th? Okay. My second question pertains to, and there's a slide at the beginning, it says dual brand direction rendering. I just want you to confirm the record that this slide, that this rendering is not the actual rendering of the property. Okay. My third question pertains to what we just reviewed with the garage and the floor plans with the garage. If you can help us orientate ourselves of how someone gets in and gets out of the garage as a hotel guest. Let me give you a situation in which I'm a hotel guest and I'm going to park at the terrace level, the highest level, and situation number two, to get from there to out of the garage. Can you maneuver through those 5 levels of how someone would go around each of those floors to get to the terrace?
So if you want to start at the 5th floor or the terrace floor,
So how do I get to the terrace floor?
Through that, if you are a guest from the hotel,
Yeah.
you will be using that the stairs and the elevator, or the elevators.
I don't know, if I'm driving into the garage, how,
Into
how,
the garage?
yeah, if I'm going to drive into the garage, can you maneuver me through the floor plans, through those 4 floors of how do I get to the terrace?
See, you,
Yes.
you're coming in there,
Okay.
and then that's, you, and then you go around to the upper level. So you're coming in here. See, that's mostly,
Okay, all right. So you're basically
coming from,
going around whatever is in the center?
yeah,
Okay. And then on the second floor, you go around the grow rooms in counterclockwise. And then that top rectangle is basically an incline to the 3rd floor, and the pattern repeats itself. Okay. My next question, and the answer might be obvious here. If you were a worker for the cultivation and manufacturing, and if you had to go from one floor to another, it looks like, is there an elevator in the garage
yeah,
that is only accessible to the employees?
yes.
So it won't be,
Two elevators then?
There are two elevators, one for the employees, which you can see. Here, and then that's the stairs, that's the elevator. For the guests, others, that's the elevator, and then that's the stairs.
and can you distinguish between the size? I would think that the one in the actual facility is probably a freight elevator.
That's a freight.
That's why the
That's why it's
distinction
bigger.
between the two sides.
can you go to the basement? And just for the purpose of the board to understand the layout in the basement here, and I know this is very small text, but it looks like on the north to northwest side of the floor plan, there's a veg room, and then most of the basement floor maybe like 70% of it is grow room. What's the and then you have on the top right of propagation. Can you elaborate on what the differences of these rooms are and what purposes do they have?
I think the applicant's representative will be able to explain all of that.
Okay.
I don't know if the architect is versed in the actual growing of the product.
Okay.
No, he designed the plan, but how the specific circumstances of how the veg room works, I don't know what that.
I'm not sure that's what the question is.
Oh, I'm sorry, if that wasn't the question.
No, so it was just basically, what are the differences between the rooms of what purpose do they serve for? Yeah, okay. I want to go back to some of the renderings that you had with the elevations. And I try to compare it to the dual brand direction that you started off with. And looking at some of the elevations, now I'll give you an example here. In the dual brand direction, it's a pretty grayscale type of coloring of shades of gray, of light gray, of whites. And meanwhile, in the south elevation, I think I see a maroon red and then a little bit of maybe like a turquoise, kind of subtle lining of turquoise. My question to you is that, what was that choice? Why was that choice of color made, and is it aligned with the branding of Hyatt?
It's actually trying to agree with the brand choice, mostly. This is also, you see that here, this is all metal cladding. This whole thing is the metal cladding, but just two different colors. They have a wide range of color selection, but the same materials.
So I'm sorry, I might have not understand that on my end. So is the red, the reddish brown that we're seeing actually reddish brown?
Yeah, reddish.
Okay. I think it also lends to my question, and I know in your testimony you said that Hyatt reviewed it. But I want to get confirmation. Did Hyatt, number one, approve the overall design of the hotel?
The applicant's representative, who has been dealing specifically with Hyatt in regards to the franchise agreement and the outside design, will be able to respond to that.
Oh, the applicant, the owner will?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So I'll save my questions with regards to that process then. Other than that, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Any other questions from the board? I have a question. Sir Giovanni.
Sir, the parking garage, that's going to be sprinkled?
Yes.
And where would the fire department connection be?
We didn't get into that detail, but
It's in the rear back parking lot? Okay,
That's where the CHP generators and all are gonna be going.
okay. And then the hotel is obviously sprinklered, so where would that fire department connection be?
Near the pool side on the rear,
Okay,
there's gonna be a section for that.
and that'll have easy access for the fire department? And then what about for the fire alarm panels? Is that one fire alarm, or is it separate and apart? And then where would those fire alarm panels be? So the mechanical room is the basement?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman?
Chair?
Mr. Chairman?
If we can swear in the additional testimony that's being provided, or however you'd like to handle it.
The owner will be testifying right after the architect, so.
Back off, okay.
Oh.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? I have a question for you, sir, and this is more of a protect the record type of a thing. This letter dated January 12th, 2024, it's your letter? Okay, and your company's in Las Vegas? Would you be so kind, and I know that you testified on the typos that are on here. On the first paragraph, it says you have 325 rooms, that's not accurate, right? Okay, and then your matrix is also inaccurate. Would you be so kind as to submit an amended one of these?
Sure.
So that all the numbers are right and we have everything on the record? How long will that take to get us another letter like that?
Probably a week.
A week or so? Great. And can you get it to your attorney so we can get it to us? Great, thank you. And again, this is just protecting the record type of a thing. The date on your design, I'm sure there's a reason for it, I just want to make sure I know what it is. The design that says Hyatt Dual Brand is dated January the 6th, 2024, that's correct, right? And then I have the Dual Brand Direction Rendering, that's dated June the 16th or 19th, 2017. And I just wanted to ask, I'm sure there's a reason for it, I just don't know what it is.
Yeah, that's from the brand, so it's came in that date.
It's just giving that data, okay, that's fine. And the system itself, is there a circulation system? In other words, what I'm asking you is, for those guests who aren't interested in the cannabis part of the business, is there like a circulation system so they don't have to breathe any of the air for the cannabis part? All right, we'll get, okay, if you have the answer to that, we'll get it later. But if you don't have, that's fine, if you don't understand. Also, too, for security purposes, what kind of a security system will you be putting in place? Will you get that too? Okay. All right, well, thank you very much, Bob.
Ask all those hard questions to you.
Smart man. Any other questions from the board? Question?
I don't have a question, I do have a request. And I don't mean to be facetious, but the 2017 rendering certainly gives a nice concept. It doesn't bear any resemblance at all to the actual plan that you have submitted or that you've just discussed. Can we omit this then, and perhaps you could find something more current from Hyatt that would give us an idea of what their current expectations are?
We'll try to get.
I think that'd be great, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Questions from the public? Thank you for your presentation, sir. Very helpful. Your next witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It's getting a little late.
We'll move quickly.
I'm sorry?
We'll move quickly.
We'll go, I'm sorry? Yeah, we'll go quickly. We have we still have a lot of work to do. I
Okay.
think we're going to have
Understood.
to table it for the next.
Understood.
So I'll give you some heads up. Okay.
Okay. Our next and last witness is Mr. Himatsu Patel.
Please raise your hand, please, sir.
Do you swear the testimony that you'll provide today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
Name's Himansu Patel. It's Himansu. Last name is Patel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. Are you here this evening in your role with Bapu Corporation?
Yes.
Could you please explain what that role is?
I'm manager / VP of Bapu Corp.
Okay. And you're aware that the subject property is subject to the Clinton Manor redevelopment plan, correct?
Correct.
And that redevelopment plan requires the execution of a redevelopment agreement?
Correct.
And you, on behalf of Bapu, agree to continue negotiating and execute that agreement with the township before any site plan permits would be issued?
I do.
Could you briefly describe for the board the status of the negotiations of the redevelopment agreement?
They're progressing well. We've pretty much gotten everything straightened away, and we are willing to comply to all the changes that the township has made.
Okay, great. And then just for the board's understanding, the redevelopment agreement calls for, after site plan approval, the conveyance of the two parcels to two separate, what are called urban renewal entities, right? It's a concept under the long-term tax exemption law. But one urban renewal entity, Bapu Holding Urban Renewal LLC, will own the hotel parcel, and Bapu Developments Urban Renewal LLC will own the cannabis parking garage parcel. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And the township's aware of that, and they're willing to agree to it. So focusing on the hotel parcel, is it correct that Bapu Holding Corp. will contract with Extreme Management to manage and operate the day-to-day hotel facility?
That is correct. We have a management agreement with Extreme Hospitality.
Okay. And could you give the board a little background on Extreme Management and why
Yeah.
you chose them?
Sure. So they were recommended to us through the IHG Group, which is they own the Holiday Inn franchise. We were working with them on a separate project, and since we were a first-time franchisee, they had recommended that we hire a management firm who is experienced in managing a hotel of that class. And so that's how we originally first met them, and then they actually introduced us to Hyatt, and that's how we got the Hyatt franchise agreement. And since they have a close relationship with Hyatt, we decided to continue the management agreement on this facility.
Now, on the first floor of the hotel, there is a proposed restaurant, and that restaurant will be limited for guests, correct?
Yeah, so it's, I feel like the word restaurant's kind of a stretch because we're not really allowing it to the public. It's just for the area for like serve breakfast to our customers. And then we do have a bar, but that's just for like customers to grab a drink while they're staying at the hotel. We're not going to be allowing any outside customers.
Okay. And just to take a quick step back, just to clarify one issue, the two urban renewal entities that will own the two properties, the membership interest in those LLCs are both the same, which is also the same as the applicant, correct?
Correct.
So there's really no distinction between
Yeah,
the
no
two,
changes.
they're just separate LLC entities?
Yes.
Okay. With respect to the cannabis parcel, Bapu Developments Urban Renewal will own that, and they will lease the cannabis portion of the property to an entity?
Yes, they will be leasing it to the licensed holder, which is Vidu Brothers Cannabis.
Okay. And Vidu Brothers Cannabis, have they sought and obtained authorization from the state and specifically the Cannabis Regulatory Commission?
Yes. Yeah, Vidu Brothers has been fully approved for annual licenses for both cultivation and manufacturing.
Okay. And as part of that state approval, did they have to obtain support from the township?
Correct, yes. We obtained a resolution from the township for both cultivation and manufacturing.
Okay. Can you describe the requirements or steps to actually open the cannabis facility? What do you have to do to satisfy any requirements of the state or the township?
So we would firstly have to get the site plan approved, and then once everything is approved and we're ready to go into construction demolitions, we would have to demolish anything and then get the complete build-out completed, and then we would have the CRC inspector come inspect the facility for any requirements, make sure that the security is, the SOPs or standards, standard operating procedures are adhering to what we had submitted to them and they had previously approved. And then once they see that everything is above board and they give their green light, then we can get into operations.
Thank you.
And we also already have an inspector assigned, so they're just waiting for us to finish the build.
Who's the?
Ryan, I can get you the name, Ryan Cernacki, I think his name is, something like that.
Could you speak about the sprinkler systems and fire-related?
Yeah, so if you look, so if you look on this slide here for the hotel, so this is, where's my mouse? There we go. Okay, so this is the pool area here. So the hookups will be somewhere, somewhere around here. And so that'll give easy access for any fire department and, to come in and hook up. And then there's a mechanical room, I believe, right here, right? On this side, sorry, yeah, left side. Yeah, so on this side, there's the mechanical room for the fire's panels and electrical panels and things like that. That's for the hotel side. And then for the cannabis, okay, so if you see here, on the top side here, these are the CHP generators that we'd be putting into the facility. That's right around this area is also where the hookups for like the sprinklers and such will go. So that'll be easy access for the fire department or anybody that needs access. And then this whole section is a mechanical room and electrical room, so that's where the fire panels and safety thing and the electrical panels and everything will be installed.
Could you explain the proposed security
Yeah,
for
so,
the,
so there is, we are gonna be complying to all CRC regulations. So there's gonna be, at all entrances, there will be key card entrances, as well as some more heavy-duty doors, as well as some biometric access points. And then there's gonna be 24-hour camera system, security camera system throughout every inch of the facility, as well as the exterior. And then there will also be armed guard at all operational hours. That's what the CRC requires. They don't require 24-hour armed guard, but they do require during operational hours, which we will be adhering to. And there's also going to be alarm systems that will be collecting directly to fire, police department at the facility as well. Similarly with the hotel side as well.
and that's not only required by the CRC, but there's also township requirements that you're going to comply with.
Yeah, and same thing with the hotel. Guests will have to enter with key cards. There won't be any access, other than the lobby entrance, there won't be any access from outside unless you're a guest and you have a proper key card.
Okay. Could you just touch upon the proposed temporary facility briefly, and the negotiations with the township with respect to commencement of demolition and the term of use?
So we will be operating the banquet hall for cultivation and manufacturing, and we had spoken with the township, and they have indicated that they did not want us to go over 12 months, so we will adhere to that 12-month time frame, and at the end of that 12 months, we will be ready to demolish the banquet hall and move the entire operations into the new main facility parking garage once it's completed.
And it's the intent of BAPU that if and when a approval was granted, you're going to begin the process of obtaining demolition permits.
Correct, yes, we've already begun working on the demo package, and we will be submitting it as soon as it's ready. So hopefully, within the next few weeks, we will have a demo package ready to be submitted.
And did you have a chance to review the engineer's review letter of January?
Yes.
Are those terms and conditions acceptable?
Yes, yeah, everything's acceptable to us.
Thank you. That concludes direct testimony.
Question from the board?
Yes. I guess, so my first set of questions relate to the relationship with Hyatt. So I think it was said prior that there was a franchise agreement signed with Hyatt. What's the duration of that agreement?
Well, there is a clause which states that within 5 years, if we do not begin construction on the facility, there is a penalty, but I don't see us even getting close to that. But they also are willing to negotiate for extensions if need be.
Negotiations on extensions on the 5 years of
Yeah.
not being able to build?
Yeah, exactly. If we can't commence within that time period, they are willing to negotiate with us for extra.
And going to the Extreme Hospitality service provider that manages the day-to-day operations, will you be serving in a capacity as management or within the operations of the company, or is that solely Extreme Hospitality?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we're new franchisees, we're not allowed to, or Hyatt doesn't want us to have any managerial capacity. That's why we will be giving it solely to Extreme Hospitality for the initial first 5 years. And then once we have established ourselves with the franchise, then they will allow us to operate the facilities ourselves.
So they're coming only for 5 years, essentially?
Well, no, we will, it's based on their performance, so if they, as long as they maintain, do well, we will continue working with Extreme Hospitality.
Okay, so the nature of the agreement is that
It's just a standard.
as long as the quality of the service and the job done by Extreme Hospitality is up to par, then the the extension of the contract continues as a result. Not necessarily that they're here temporarily for 5 years to manage and then basically hand it over to you.
Yeah, no, that's not the case.
Okay.
It's just an industry standard to have a 5-year contract, usually in management agreements.
Yeah.
But we have full intention to continue to allow Extreme Management as long as they continue to perform.
Got it. My next question, going back to the relationship with Hyatt, and I know I saved this question, I initially asked this question to the architect, and I'm going to have it now for you, with regards to the design and basically understanding the process in which Hyatt reviewed and approved these. So just my first question is, it seems like Hyatt did review the site plans?
They have reviewed it, yes.
Okay. And have they approved it?
Yes, so they have so their process is usually you would send them like a 25% completion set, and then you go to 50, and then you go to 75, and then 100. So we have submitted the 25, and they've approved that, and now our next set is to get to the 50% set, and that means putting in all the equipment and all the furnishings and the fine tuning, and then we submit that, and then then we'll get approval for that, and then we'll move on to the next.
So in terms of what was presented by the architect tonight, was that the 25%?
Yeah, 25% set so far. Well, now it's progressed.
Yeah.
Since we have submitted it to Hyatt, but when we had submitted it to Hyatt, it was a 25% set.
But I mean, what was presented to us tonight?
No, now it's a lot further along. I couldn't say off the top, maybe like 45%, I guess, somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah.
Okay. My next couple questions pertain to the cultivation, but first on the temporary facilities. I recall probably around an hour ago, I asked a question with regards to, is the temporary location, i.e. the banquet hall, going to be used for only cultivation or cultivation and manufacturing?
Our plan is to both.
To do both?
To operate both, yeah.
Okay. And if I could recall from past testimony, you had some individuals who operate the business, gave some kind of flavor in terms of what they would put to accommodate the demands for cultivation. What plans are put into place to accommodate the manufacturing part? I assume that there are storage demands as a result, and so is there like a temporary plan that is there but wasn't presented to us? Because I don't think the board has seen like a floor plan per se of what this would look like.
Yeah, do we not submit a floor plan for the temp?
No, that was not.
I can submit a floor plan. We do have a floor plan for the temp grow. There is storage space in our floor plan factored in for both sides of the manufacturing as well as the cultivation. There's a designated space for dry curing, for packing, for storage, vault, all of it.
Okay. And with now the permanent location for cultivation and manufacturing in the garage, I think I recall the question asked back in November in terms of number of employees attributed to cultivation. Can you remind us in terms of the number of employees in total that would be for both cultivation and manufacturing, and what would be the ratio of full-time and part-time employees?
Okay. So this also answers your question. So you were correct overall. There is roughly 60. If you count the hotel and the cultivation, there will roughly be, but there won't be 60 employees at the facility at any given time because everybody's staggered. So at any given time, it'll be about half of that, right? So about 30 people, if you're counting both facilities, there'll be about anywhere from 25 to 30 employees on site at any given time.
Okay.
I have a quick question about the Extreme Hospitality Company.
Sure.
Will they be doing all the hiring?
Yes.
All the vetting, all the
Yes, they have.
arrangements for all the machinations
we
that
will
will
be
make the
completely
hotel
hands-off.
run properly?
Yes, yeah, and they have a very rigorous background check process for all the staffing and everything. So yeah, they will be handling all of that.
And anywhere in the plans that we've seen so far, there's no designated parking spaces for the, what must certainly be multiple employees of the workforce to operate the hotel.
For the hotel, yeah, well, there's service level parking surrounding the.
So I guess what I'm saying, sir, and this is a statement rather than a question, pardon me for the late thinking of my brain. If I'm a guest, I will come in to the driveway that will be approved as appropriate, and the place I will be asked to park primarily is at the top terrace. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So I have to circulate all around the core of that
Yes.
garage building, find the top, take an elevator down with my bags, walk across, and then enter into either under a glass canopy or a back door, which I don't have access to until I get my key card.
Yes, until you have a key card, yes.
So it's a lot of walking through rain, snow, and stairs and elevators. Is there any way to, as you think of the practicality of your guests, maybe the extreme
That is-
hospitality people will come up with a really good solution, because that seems like a lot of traveling.
That is, it is a lot of walking. The way to mitigate that, number one, is, you know, you would assume that the guests are gonna stop by the lobby first, get their key, drop off their bags, and then go park their car, right?
Is there a space
And
to
then-
do that, sir?
Yeah, so, and then by that time, they would also have key cards, so they could easily
Understand.
enter from the rear.
That was my question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other question from the board? I have a question. Joe, please.
You know where the nearest fire hydrant is? Are you gonna lose the one that's in the front?
Yeah, there's two. I don't think we're gonna lose,
You're not gonna lose them.
yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think so. Yeah, we're not gonna be losing the fire hydrant, but there are two.
All right. And with regards to the cannabis warehouse, in the basement, when the fire alarm goes off, will those doors automatically open, or they become unlocked?
Yeah, they'll become unlocked, they won't automatically open, but yes, they will be unlocked, so that guests can exit. easily.
Right.
Yes.
Any other questions from the board?
Just had one more follow-up question. Did
I have
I?
one, but that's all right.
No, Mr. Frank.
I'm just thinking, I don't know if you can answer this, but would you be opposed to an emergency vehicle entrance only, just for the emergency vehicle? I should have asked the traffic man. But, would you be opposed to that?
No, we wouldn't be opposed to that. I mean,
Just
if
for
it
a-
was- Yeah, if we could fit it within our site and not have to change much, yeah, we wouldn't be opposed to that.
Okay, because I didn't know if that one with the New Jersey State DOT or not, but,
It's definitely something we would have to run by them, but it's something
Okay.
we can talk to them about and,
okay,
you know, see if they're willing to accept that.
Okay. thank you.
This might be a question more so either for the engineer or for the architect or maybe for you, but going back to the garage and really thinking about the layout and having the operations minus the basement basically be in the middle of the garage, how is that constructed in a way to mitigate or to block out vibrations that would be caused by cars going in and through the garage, through the floors and back down to ground level? How do you mitigate all those vibrations that will be caused by those cars?
Yeah, I mean, it would be the material that we would use. I mean, a lot of the structures around would be concrete, so a lot of that would be mitigated. And, you know, so most of it would be on how we design the layout. So I don't think that that's going to be much of an issue because, you know, most of the cultivation space is going to be behind like a concrete wall. So there's going to be a lot of buffer space between the car, the car route, and the operations.
Is it mainly concrete that's just going to be used, or is there other?
There are going to be other materials that are going to be used, like between the drywall. There's going to be insulation and other things like that.
And would you happen to know like what those materials are, or if Mr. Chair, if you would entertain if that could be answered by another?
Yeah, I mean, I can get a material list for you later. We don't have.
Are we even at that stage yet?
Yeah,
That
that's what I'm
far
saying.
along in the
Yeah.
design?
Yeah, we would have to get to that point. Once we get to that point, I can provide you a material list.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Patel, thank you very, very much. All of your witnesses have been very helpful. Mr. Kopsky, I have a list of about a dozen pieces of information that we need from your clients, so I think it's a safe bet. The thing would be to carry this to the next meeting, if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay. And I don't know when that'll be. We'll get back to you. We'll ask Ms.
For
Rutledge.
noticing purposes, is it possible to look it up now, just so we can announce it, although there's no one here, just so we avoid any additional noticing? I believe it's February 22nd.
Okay, Ms. Rutledge? Okay.
Yeah, we're going to continue on, notice wouldn't be required, renoticing.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. All right.
Thank you.
And thank you very much again.
Thank you, members.
Thank you, sir. No, I have no other new business. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting is come to an end.
But you're getting there, though. Considering from what I'm hearing from them.
Hold on to your material. A little better.
I did.
Hold on to yourself.
It's not this. Yeah. So maybe next meeting might be just as long. Yeah. But now I expect.
So your application's